Hey everyone, welcome back to The Morgue. My name is Mal and I am your host. I hope everyone has had a great holiday and a very, very happy new year. I know that I said I was going to be posting again for Black Christmas. However, the holidays happened. I was a little bit busy. And yeah, I hope you guys can understand. But we are back for the new year. We are excited to be here, super duper pumped. Some great things are going to be coming this year. Soon we're going to have some video podcasts for everyone. Those will be posted on Spotify and YouTube. And eventually we will have our subscriptions on Patreon. Those, like I said in a previous episode, those are going to be put on hold for a little bit. But just getting started, this is our Nightmares from the Morgue. Apparently, The Faculty is getting a remake. Daniel Richman revealed on his Patreon page that Robert Rodriguez is producing a said remake, and that is literally all the information that we have at the moment. If you don't know what The Faculty is, please refer to episode 7. It's basically a story of a high school in Ohio being invaded by aliens, and it's so 90s, so nostalgic, just so chef's kiss. It stars Josh Hartnett, Jordana Brewster, Clea Duvall, Laura Harris, and Elijah Wood, and it's currently available to stream for free on Pluto TV, not sponsored, but you guys could eventually sponsor me. Next up, the director of Scream 7 has officially exited the production. Christopher Landon announced on Twitter that he formally exited the project a few weeks ago, and the tweet stated, quote, "I guess now is as good of a time as any to announce I formally exited Scream 7 weeks ago. This will disappoint some and delight others. It was a dream job that turned into a nightmare, and my heart did break for everyone involved, everyone. But it's time to move on. I have nothing," which is really sad. I was really pumped for Scream 7. And of course, this follows the, in my opinion, wrongful termination of Melissa Barrera, as well as Jenna Ortega straight up dropping the project, allegedly due to scheduling issues with the Netflix series Wednesday. But in my opinion, I think Jenna left because they dropped Melissa, because it was literally the day after they dropped Melissa. She was like, "Peace out, bye guys." And so I personally don't think Scream 7 is gonna happen. If it does, it probably will not be that good. Because Scream 5, it rebooted the series. It was a requel. And so now 2 of the biggest main characters of the whole series now, they're gone. So it's like, what's even the point of it now? But moving along, the horror movie of the week is Stay Alive from 2006. And I remember sitting down and watching this for the first time. And I remember my dad telling me that this movie would make me want to stop playing video games, because I've always been a big gamer. If you know me, you know I love video games. It didn't. It just piqued my interest about Countess Elizabeth Bathory, which the Morbid podcast, they have a great episode on Elizabeth Bathory. Please go listen to that. I learned so much about that woman because of that episode. So definitely go listen to that Morbid episode. But anyways, this movie is repulsed by many, but it has quite a cult following. And the movie revolves around a dude and his friends who play a video game, one where if you die in the game, you die in real life. And it's a pretty basic concept, but there are so many more layers to this movie, and you're just going to have to go watch it yourself. It's available for purchase through Amazon Prime Video, not sponsored. But like I say, Amazon, you can't always sponsor me. And lastly, our true crime story of the week. We have some uplifting news this week. Well, uplifting to some. Gypsy Rose Blanchard has been released from prison after serving 7 years of her 10-year sentence. And if you don't know who Gypsy is, let me give you a small summary. She was the daughter of Claudine Blanchard, whom of which suffered from Munchausen by proxy, meaning she made Gypsy sick or appear sick in order to receive attention and sympathy. And it's a really fucked up situation. So Gypsy met a guy online. His name is Nicholas Godejohn, and they planned for him to come and rescue her by murdering her mother in cold blood. Nicholas acted alone in the actual slaying, but Gypsy did help with the planning and ended up pleading guilty to second-degree murder, and Nicholas was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for his contribution. Gypsy is now 32 years old, and we assume she will be living with her now husband, Ryan Anderson, and us over at the Morgue podcast, we all wish the best of luck and healing to Gypsy, because if you don't know all of the details, like, please go do some research. There are plenty of documentaries about it. There's the TV show The Act that was on Hulu, which I can say some of that is dramatized, but for the most part, everything in that is true. Yeah, it's a really, really messed up situation. And, you know, I look at it like this. She served her time. Now, like I said, I wish her all the best of luck with her healing process and everything. Moving along, the movie that I'm covering this week is Ghost Ship. I know a lot of people don't like this movie, but I personally do. It's one of those movies that me and my family used to watch whenever me and my sister were younger, and I never really understood all of it because after watching this movie now, there is a lot of questions, and no wonder why I did not understand it as a child, but here we go. Ghost Ship is a 2002 horror movie written by Mark Hanlon and John Pogue and directed by Steve Beck, which, if that name does sound familiar, he also directed 13 Ghosts, which we just covered, I believe, 2 episodes prior to this, so definitely go check that out. Ghost Ship was also under Dark Castle Entertainment, which, if you don't know about Dark Castle, they, the production company, wanted to start recreating older movies, like, you know, the like monster-y type movies. That's how they got 13 Ghosts. So this is actually a remake of Death Ship from 1980. But honestly, a lot of people say that there's really not a lot of similarities into that. And so I think they just kind of took the premise and ran with it and made their own story. And so Ghost Ship stars Juliana Margulies as Epps. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Gabriel Byrne plays Murphy. John Eldard plays Dodge. Desmond Harrington plays fucking Ferryman. Y'all will understand why I can't stand Ferryman soon. Isaiah Washington. Moment of silence for his fucking career. He plays Greer. Carl Urban plays Munder, and Emily Browning plays Katie. Ghost Ship opened on October 25th, 2002 in the US on an estimated budget of $20 million. It had an opening weekend box office of $11.5 million and a gross worldwide of $68.3 million. And a lot of people like to say this movie was a flop. That is not a flop. They made back 3 times the amount that they spent. So I'm just saying this definitely was not a flop. It had a runtime of 1 hour, 31 minutes, or 91 minutes if you're a weirdo. IMDb has it at a score of 5.6 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, y'all. Rotten Tomatoes, I have a bone to pick with you because these ratings are shit, okay? I'll start out with the audience. I usually do the tomato meter first, but I'll do the audience first. Audience gave it a 37%. That's bullshit, and every single one of you that rated this low, I don't like you. And then the tomato meter, y'all, the critics, they straight up murdered this movie. Like, they gave it a 15%. What kind of shit is that? I'm upset. It needs more than that. I need everyone that has ever rated this movie to go back and watch it and give it a higher rating because it deserves a higher rating. And then Letterboxd gave it a 2.4 out of 5, which I can kind of agree, you know, that's right in the middle. That's about 50%. I personally gave it a 3 though, because I feel like it deserved that extra little 0.6. And so we open with a party. It's on a cruise ship, and we're in 1962. And the cruise ship is the Antonia Grazia. It's an Italian liner. And we see this beautiful woman in a red dress. She's singing on stage to the crowd in Italiano. And there's a young girl. She's all alone. And she gets asked by the captain to come dance. And everything is all happy and great. The music's playing. Everyone's smiling. But then something happens. There's this thin piece of wire that you see. And it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And it eventually gets yanked across the whole fucking dance floor, y'all. And everyone has been cut in half at the waist. Everyone falls over. There's blood and guts everywhere. Everybody's in half. And like, okay, here's the cool thing. So at first, everyone was just standing, right? Everyone has this shocked look on their face. Like their brain is just trying to commute what the hell just happened. And then they fall. You know, we see this one woman, she's trying to like grab her waist and reconnect it. And it's like, girly pop, you are done skis. And then there's the girl, she's still alive. And the captain is still standing. He was crouched over her to protect her, right? I guess he like realized at the last moment what the fuck was happening and he crouched down, right? However, his head is literally cut in half, y'all. He's like in shock, and then his fucking, like the top of his head just falls the fuck off. The girl screams, and we cut over to present day, and there's this group of scavengers who are trying to collect a sinking boat. There's all this action and stuff. They're like, oh my God, there's a hole. And our main woman, Epps, she goes down there, she patches the hole, and the crew are able to bring the boat in. We jump cut to a bar, and the crew, they're splitting their money for the collection of the boat. They're relaxing, drinking, having a good time. But then a dude comes up and offers the captain, his name is Murphy, a drink. Epps says that Murphy, he don't drink. So the guy says that he just wants to have a little conversation with him. And so Murphy says that if he talks to him, he talks to his whole crew. And so the guy, his name is Ferryman. Fuck you, Ferryman. He explains that he found a ship out in the middle of the ocean and he wants their help to recover it. The crew discusses it and they agree to go out there to retrieve it, which that was not a good decision. That night, the crew and ferryman head out and everyone chit-chats on the way except for Santos, who is manning the wheel. And he sees something pop up and disappear on the radar. So he calls Murphy to come check it out. Murphy looks, he says he doesn't see anything. So he calls another crew member, Dodge, to go man these like big ass lights outside. Dodge does what he's told, but then there it is. A ship is on the radar and they're heading straight for it. Santos tries his best to stop the tugboat. But, you know, he does that, he does it a little too much to the point where Dodge falls off from where the lights are and he almost gets crushed to death, but he makes it out from the front of the boat before it crashes into the large ship. So Murphy, Epps, Dodge, and Munder, they all board the ship while Santos tries to work on the boat, and Greer, he stays back to listen to ferrymen complain about not being able to go on the ship yet. And Greer's like, look, dude, it's a safety thing. Like, my guy, this ship has been sitting out here for 40 years. Don't you want to make sure that it's safe first before you go on there? I know I would. I wouldn't want to go on that fucking ship. And so the group, they walk through the corridors of the ship. They're joking around. And like I said, it's been sitting there for 40 years. Everything is all rusty, dusty, nasty, and gross. And Munder, he's like, I'll go first with his fucking cigarette. I'll go first, trying to be a badass. And he ends up falling through some rotted floor. And Epps, she catches him, right? And Dodge and Murphy grab onto her. And they're like right above the ballroom, right? Epps is holding on to Munder the best that she can. She's like halfway through the hole too. And she sees the little girl from the beginning. She's standing in the ballroom, but she has to like look back down at Munder to make sure he's still good. And she looks over. The girl's gone. She's disappeared. And they're able to pull Epps and Munder up to safety. And so the group, they go back to the tugboat and they make a plan. They have 3 days to work on the ship until it sinks. So they decide to start work in the morning, but before the night is over, Epps and Ferryman have a little moment together, and she explains seeing the little girl, and he tries to understand her, seeming all sweet and a good listener and all this shit. Big sigh. Like, God, I fucking hate this dude. And so the next day, the crew examines the holes, and they're really large. And Murphy explains that there are these islands, which are really just big rocks, and it's, out in the distance, and the ship has been hit by it multiple times. And he says that if it gets hit one more time, the ship will sink no matter what. And so the group, they still agree to work on the ship. And at one point, Greer says that he's going to call the Coast Guard but I think he's just trying to tell them, like, hey, we're out here, we're working on this ship. But Murphy stops him and explains that he doesn't want any unwanted guests. He's being a little greedy, And that was not a good idea. Not calling the Coast Guard, terrible idea. And so everyone boards the ship to see what's going on inside, except for Santos, who is again working to fix the tugboat. He's down there doing his thing, listening to his music, whatever. And so Greer and Murphy, they're walking around until they find the captain's quarters, which is only allowed for captains. So Murphy goes in alone and Greer continues on. Murphy finds a bottle of alcohol in the room and he almost drinks it, but he stops himself short when he looks up at the mirror and sees the original captain standing there instead of himself, right? So he all scared and shit. And then Greer, he thinks he hears a woman singing and trying to seduce him. And then there's Dodge and Munder. They find out that the engine room is completely flooded, which means even more work for them. But they're like, you know what? We got this. Epps, she finds the pool and she sees bullet holes lining the walls of the pool. And she goes down to examine them more, but on her way back up, there's the little girl standing there, scares the shit out of her, makes her fall back and hit her head. And when she comes to, there's fucking Ferryman. He's there to try to help her, get her out of the pool, and she says that she saw the girl again. And so Ferryman and Epps, they end up exploring together, and after finding these nasty ass, stankin', 3-week-old decaying bodies that were stored in a room filled with water, they end up finding another room with this awesome, beautiful, vintage Jaguar car. And then there's another room that has a lot of mail. And then there's these crates, right? The crates are filled with gold bars, y'all. Like 100 gold bars. They're looking at this. They're like, we are fucking rich. And so keep in mind this though. Ferryman, he is being a real freak the entire time. He's up there laughing and giggling like, nothing is even of importance. And it's like, my guy, like, this ship, it could sink any moment, technically. And you up here giving weird looks, acting fucking weird and giggling and shit, like, quit, okay? And so they go off to find everyone else. They end up getting jump scared by Dodge and Munder. So Epps angrily explains that they just found all these dead bodies and they found the gold. And so the crew all go to the gold and they see that all of the markings have been shaved down, which means it's possible that the gold is stolen. However, the law says whatever's found in international waters, finders keepers. So they all agree to say, fuck the ship, and they take the gold instead. And so as the crew are gathering the gold for transport, Greer and Santos are getting the tugboat ready. And like I said, Santos, he's been trying to work on it. They were having some engine trouble because, they hit the fucking ship. And so Santos, he's getting his last little bit finished. And he calls up to Greer. He's like, yeah, man, go ahead and start it. But then something invisible makes the propane in the room magically turn on. And he starts to smell it. He starts to smell the gas. Before he can even, say anything, before he can even react to the smell of the gas, Greer starts the boat and there's this huge fucking explosion. And Greer, Munder, and Santos, they were all on the boat. They were all trying to get some shit ready, right? And so Epps, she witnessed the explosion. So she This crazy bitch, she literally jumps the hell into the water. She's on the ship, okay? This big ass ocean liner. She jumps into the water, which, I'm sorry, I looked at that and I was like, are we sure she didn't die on impact? Because, like, that's, like, the same height as a bridge, homie. I don't know about y'all, but, like, that seems like a death trap to me, okay? And so, anyways, she jumps into the water, and her, along with fucking ferrymen, are able to recover Greer and Munder, but unfortunately, Santos, he dead. He had to bottom of the ocean with the fishes, okay? And so now they're fucking screwed. Their boat is exploded. Now the sinking ship is heading for the rocks that'll sink if it gets hit again. And also, they never hit up the Coast Guard to tell them, hey, we're out here. And so they come up with another plan. Fix the ship in the morning, enough to where it doesn't sink and to avoid the rocks, and they will eventually be picked up by someone else. Munder and Dodge agree, but Greer, he is pissed. And he says if he could have had it his way, they would have called the Coast Guard and someone would have known they were out there and they would have been picked the fuck up and heading home now. He says fuck all of them. This man, like, okay, don't get me wrong. I don't like Isaiah Washington, okay? He is a very controversial man. However, this character, I like the character. He's the only smart motherfucker on this boat. When I tell you, like, Munder's over there talking shit, this man full forces punches Munder in the fucking face. Like, when I tell you, there was some strength behind that punch, okay? Bravo for punching him, because I would have done the same thing. And so Greer, he goes off by himself, being all mad and shit. And as for Murphy, he's on his own, and he's trying not to drink the 40-year-old alcohol that's in the captain's room. But, you know, it's a horror movie, so he does drink it and ends up breaking his sobriety. And so Epps is on the hunt for the little girl, and she ends up finding out that her name was Katie, and she finds her room. And in the room, there's all these cute little drawings, clothing, jewelry. And she opens up the closet door and there's Katie's fucking dead body just hanging there. And it's really sad and fucked up. And Epps ends up taking the locket off the corpse. And suddenly, there's Katie behind her. She's like, hey, girl. And Katie explains that, yep, she's dead. And she starts to kind of explain what's going on. And she says that her and her shipmates are stuck on the ship until he can meet his quota. And before she can say any more, before we know who the hell he is, he makes her disappear. Like, what we see is like the ship, like the room and stuff, it starts turning like black and stuff. She starts hyperventilating and freaking out. And then she just fucking disappears. I don't know what's up with that, but whatever. And so back with Murphy, he's getting wasted, y'all. And the captain appears behind him. And he explains that the Antonio Graza encountered another ship, the Lorelei, which was empty except for the gold that was in the crates and one person. And Murphy asks who that one person was. And the captain gives him a photo, which we do not yet see, okay? It's all a mystery. And so with Dodge and Munder, they are big hungry at this point. So they open up the 40-year-old canned food, which I don't know if y'all have ever seen. There's this guy on YouTube. I'm exposing myself so hard right now. There's this guy on YouTube who tries different like MREs and stuff. He tries gets all this shit from like fucking World War II and shit. Or like, you know, fucking the Korean War and stuff. And he tries it. He opens it up, see what's all in it, you know, see if it's still tasty. I know for a fact a 40-year-old can of food would be all dried up and crusty and nasty. And I don't even know why they're even trying to eat this shit. But they do. And they say it's delicious. It's some beans and some rice. And so they're up there throwing down, and Munder, he's like, hey, yo, Dodge, you have a little bit of rice on the corner of your mouth, right? And when he goes to wipe it, it turns out the rice is a fucking maggot. The whole can of rice filled with maggots. It's disgusting. I told y'all, don't eat 40-year-old food. And so they run out screaming. They're disgusted. I personally would have puked everywhere, but they don't do that. And Greer, he's over there getting drunk. He's in his feels. He's pissed off. And he's talking to a picture of his fiance. But then things start happening, right? The room, and this is the only way that I can describe it, the room reverses itself, okay? Meaning it goes back in time, back to how it looked in 1962. And people are all around him clapping, and he sees the beautiful singer from the beginning. Her name is Francesca. He sees her, and she seduces him. And he reasons with himself, saying he can't cheat on his fiance with a dead woman, right? And Francesca ends up leading him to a hallway. She's like undressing herself as she goes. And Greer, he's ready to get some of that dead woman kitty cat, if you know what I'm saying. And he goes to like lean into her to, you know, like kiss on her and shit. But guess what? She's a ghost. And he ends up falling through her to his death. Because guess what? She was standing at an empty elevator shaft that he foreshadowed earlier. He literally looked in that and was like, ooh, that's a far way down. Yeah, you stupid bitch. That's where you dying. That's your death spot, my guy. Maybe don't be worrying about some dead girl kitty cat, okay? I'm just saying. Back to Murphy. He's trying to tell someone about his little discovery. And he ends up walking into Santo's ghost, right? Santo, he is pissed, okay? He's big pissed. And he tries to fight him. Murphy runs off into Epps, but the ship makes him see Santo's ghost instead, right? And Murphy is literally trying to murder Epps/Santos, but then Ferryman knocks him the fuck out, okay? And so Dodge, Munder, and Ferryman throw Murphy into like this empty like fish tank thing. It's like this big, huge glass tank to sleep off the alcohol, and they prepare to work on the ship. And so the next morning, the crew, they fix all the holes in the ship. They're able to turn it enough to where it won't hit the island of the big ass rocks. And so now Epps, she goes off alone again. And unfortunately, she finds Greer's body as well as Katie. And Katie's like, I need to show you something. So she shows her a flashback of what happened to everyone, which goes a little something like this. So the sole survivor of the other ship, the Lorelei, they convinced some workers of the Antonio Graza to kill everyone on board so that they can split the gold, okay? So not only did they do the whole wire trick in the beginning, they poisoned everyone with rat poisoning. It's really fucked up. And poor Katie, she's like running around the hallways. There's chaos everywhere. She ends up getting taken into her room. I don't really know what happens. It's left to the imagination. I'm not going to dive more into that. But all of the workers, they kill everyone. They're celebrating. They're down there with the gold in the mailroom with the gold. And one worker ends up just shooting all the other ones as Francesca watches, right? Francesca, she kisses him and then shoots him point blank in the head, okay? So the last remaining person is Francesca. And then another man emerges. They kiss, but then Francesca, like, okay, so like they kiss or whatever. Francesca looks at him. She gets hooked in the fucking neck, right? She's suspended in the air. Blood is going everywhere. And she dead, right? The person then grabs her hand with his hand and brands her hand with some sort of like hook thing. And this is all with his hand. He don't have no branding iron, okay? He literally grabs her hand and brands it with his own hand. And then he turns around and guess who the fuck it is? Fucking Ferryman, okay? And so while all this is happening, an invisible force has turned on the water that runs into the tank that Murphy is in. And he unfortunately drowns off screen. And Munder and Dodge, they see that there's a bit of a problem in the engine room. So they were trying to like pump out all this water and there was a clog. And so they do rock, paper, scissors to see who's going to go down there and fix it. And Munder loses. And so Munder has to go into the water. He tries to fix it. And as he's coming back, I liked Munder. Some machinery ends up crushing him to death, which is fucked up. I think Munder should have lived. He was a dirty motherfucker and he was funny. And yeah, R.I.P. Munder. And so Epps, she ends up meeting up with Dodge and is almost able to spill the beans about Ferryman. But then here comes his little fucking bitch ass coming into the room, and Epps tells them to stay there. She's gonna go check on Munder and she's gonna work on some stuff. And she ends up giving Dodge a shotgun and is like, take this shit, okay? And he's like up there looking crazy because she wasn't really able to like tell him anything. She was just like, you know, there's some shit going on. We need to get off this ship. And then she's like, you guys need to stay the fuck here. And so Epps, she does not want anyone to get off the ship. So she plans to blow it the fuck up. So she's setting some C4. She unfortunately ends up seeing Munder's body parts floating around in the water. It's really gross. But then here comes Dodge. Like, as she's like right about to explode it, here comes Dodge. And he's like, what are you doing? You know, we could just like save the ship and then we can sell it along with the gold. And then like we can sell away and live together forever. But Epps, she ain't having it. She refuses. And so Dodge literally throws a tantrum like a child, throwing shit. And Epps makes a good point when she says, you haven't asked me where Munder is. Well, guys and gals, it turns out that it's not Dodge. It's Ferryman posing as Dodge. Which, this moment right here, what the hell happened to Dodge? Okay? Because the last we saw him, and let me backtrack a little bit. The last we saw him, Ferryman, he was getting a little froggy, and so Dodge fucking shot him with the shotgun. And then that was it. Like, what happened to him? I need to know. I have questions. What happened to Dodge, okay? Because he was also pretty smart for the most part. What the fuck happened to him? And so a fight ends up ensuing, and it basically ends with the ship, along with Ferryman, being blown the fuck up. And all of the souls of the ship has been released. It's very, very cheesy because literally the ship goes down like the Titanic and there's all these like souls floating up from it. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this shit? And Epps, she was able to swim to the surface. She's, you know, holding on to a fucking suitcase. She can't find a door, you know, she can't be like actually like Titanic. She finds a fucking suitcase and she ends up getting picked up by another ship. Lucky her. And as she's being loaded into the ambulance, she sees some men and they're loading some crates onto the ship. Whoa, I thought the crates got exploded, excuse me. And then she sees fucking Ferryman going onto the ship. And then the movie just ends with Epps screaming, no! Like, I'm sorry. The ending, I'm pissed, okay? I am pissed. I have questions. I have so many questions about the ending. So, like, Ferryman, okay? I understand. He explains that basically he was a sinner in life and he was turned into this thing that has to make people sin in order for them to be killed and taken to hell. And so like it's kind of like he's a demon, but like a lot of it just doesn't make sense because I'm like, okay, so all of the souls are trapped on the ship, right? How the fuck was it? How was Ferryman able to go onto shore to get them, to tell them that the ship is out there in the first place, right? Second of all, this man was exploded, okay, into a million fucking pieces. How is he back and able to get on the next boat? Also, were they planning on making a sequel? Like, because it's so open-ended, you know, Epps, she's cool, she's fine. But what about Ferryman? What happens? What happens with the new boat? Is it just going to be a cycle? I am confusion. So, Dark Castle Entertainment, I don't know if y'all are still doing stuff. I don't know if y'all are still open. I don't know. Y'all need to go ahead and make a sequel so these questions can be answered, because I am confusion. And in all honesty, after after reading all of this out loud, I can kind of understand where, what was it, 37%, 38% audience score on the Rotten Tomatoes. I can kind of understand that. I still feel like it deserves a 50 just because I think it's the nostalgia for me, to be honest. But yeah, this movie, it's kind of infuriating. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's so infuriating. Oh my God. Like, do better, storytellers. But anyways, we're at the end of the episode. I just want to thank everyone for continuing to listen and support. It means so much to me. And thank you for just keep coming back, like that's awesome. I know I'm not the best at keeping my, schedules and stuff. And like I said before, because of the holidays, it's been a little rough, that and Hannah going on her hiatus. But, 2024, it's going to be our year. It's going to be a great time. We're going to try our best to pump out these episodes as quickly as possible. We're still going to be doing one every week. And like I said at the beginning, in the future, we're definitely going to be having those subscriptions. And yeah. Oh, also video podcast. I forgot video podcast, y'all. I am so pumped. I have our little studio ready to go. Like it's time, I got these cute little posters hanging up. It's so fucking cute. The lighting in here is good, and I'm just so pumped to see what 2024 brings us. And so next week, to be honest, I don't know what we're watching next week. It's going to be something good. It's going to be something fire. And yeah, I hope you guys come back and see me. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. Those are linked in the description below. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify, it will be in the show notes. If you click on the episode name, it'll pop up a page that has everything on it. Or you can go to our Linktree. It's Linktree, it's linktr.ee/morguepod. And that is also going to be in the description and in the show notes. And I will see you next time. Bye.